We may not live anymore in a fundamentally agrarian society, but we can still appreciate these natural images of plants and trees and seeds and corn growing, of an image of the growth and the life that is our spiritual life, precisely. And if we look at this section from Ezekiel in the first reading, which Jesus quotes in the Gospel, about the birds of the air coming and making shade in the branches, we can see what God does. The coming of Christ is really what can be interpreted as. God says, I will take from the crest of the cedar, from its topmost branches, tear off a tender shoot, and plant it on the high and lofty mountain. Put forth branches and bear fruit and become a majestic cedar. So God takes a sprout from our stock. It's that verse I quoted in the Kyrie today that we usually use during Advent, about the shoot shall sprout from the stump of Jesse. Jesus will come not just down from heaven, but up from our stock, from Adam, from out of our earth. We're humans, we're made of the earth, and the plants come from the earth, and we're like plants. And Jesus himself is like this plant. So that the tree has been growing since Adam, and so the topmost shoot the Lord takes at the time of Christ, and this becomes, a new plant, taken from the old, taken from that same stock, but it's destined to become a majestic cedar and bear much fruit. So it's not just about Jesus' coming, it's about, how we fit in. We're from the same stock, and we are of the stock, therefore, of Christ. We become, to use that beautiful image that he uses himself from John's Gospel, he's the vine and we are the branches. So we have to stay, and all these truths of the plant world fit perfectly well for our spiritual life. We have to stay united to the vine, united to the plant that comes from that shoot. We are shoots of the plant ourselves, and we have to stay united to the vine if we're going to bear fruit. Otherwise, as Jesus himself says, we're cast off and we dry up, we wither as a branch that's cast off from the vine. So we have to stay connected to Christ if we're going to grow and bear fruit. And we have to remember, too, this really is not in our power at all. Just like any branch or shoot of a plant or a tree can't say, wow, I'm doing this on my own. I'm hot stuff, Well, no. All the nutrients, all the sap, everything is coming from below, and you're just receiving it, You're letting it happen. So we can't grow proud or presumptuous, like, wow, I'm great, I'm doing it. Because it's all a gift. That's why there's this rather striking caution at the end of the first reading. I'll bring down the high tree and raise up the lowly tree. It's what Mary says in her Magnificat. Pull down the lowly from their thrones, pull down the mighty from their thrones, and raise up the lowly. I wish we had more of that in our political life or our social life, but apparently not. We're not really following the gospel. The lowly are the ones who are raised up, and the presumptuous, mighty, and the proud in the imagination of their hearts, as Mary sings, the rich are sent away empty, the hungry are filled with good things. It's what Jesus means by the first beatitude, being poor in spirit, recognizing that we have nothing of our own. We are essentially poor, but that's our strength, because all we have to do is come to the Lord, and he fills us with the life that all comes from him anyway. But especially in our spiritual life, we're aware that we can do nothing of ourselves. So the lowly tree is raised up, wither the green tree and make the withered tree bloom. So often we feel like we're a withered tree, not able to produce fruit. We may be depressed or discouraged or feel unworthy. But that's precisely when the Lord can come in his mercy and raise us up and infuse the Spirit to get the sap moving again and the greenery returning, so that we can, in the words of the psalm, become a cedar of Lebanon and a palm tree, flourishing like a palm tree, even in old age, which is, as the psalm says, which is something that I think of a lot. So that is what Jesus is talking about then in the gospel. And it brings out some of the same themes here. So the seed is planted. We're planted. Again, to use an image that Jesus does, the seed, if we here we're the seed, we have to be planted in the earth and die in order to bear much fruit, right? Jesus says that just before his passion, referring essentially to himself and his passion. Unless the grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains just a grain of wheat, but if it dies, it can produce much fruit. It becomes something it could never have imagined on its own. And it's all God's work, which is what it goes on to say. The farmer sleeps night and day, and the seed sprouts and grows on its own. He doesn't know how. Of its own accord, it grows. There you are again. It's all from God. We don't know, just like we don't understand how our own body works, and yet it works. Same with the spiritual life. We have to let the Spirit do its work and inspire us and guide us and fill us with life and light and joy and hope. Of its own accord, the land yields its fruit. The word in Greek is automati, automatically, by God's own working, not by anything that we can do from ourselves or of ourselves. And then, of course, the beautiful theme of harvest, which is all through the Scriptures. The book of Revelation and all the way back to Genesis, we have the harvest. Or as the Psalm says, we may sow in tears, but we bring that back the sheaves with rejoicing. So our life is about growing and bearing fruit, the fruits of the Spirit, which are the fruits of the Spirit precisely, not our own, and then being harvested. And that's when we return to the Lord. And it's a joyful harvest. We return to the Lord bearing the harvest of our lives. It's a very beautiful image. And the harvest is God's harvest. We've hopefully let God bring us to fruition, literally, to bear the fruits of the Spirit, and we return to the Lord with bearing that harvest. And in the meanwhile, while we're here, hopefully we become majestic cedar, and many can find shade in our branches. We can help many people, bring relief and hope and joy and compassion to people's lives by the fruits and the shade we can provide, so to speak. But finally, to come to the second reading is about that return, the harvest returning to the Lord. Although it doesn't use that precise image. It's very interesting. This is a text that's provided for use at wakes, at funerals, wakes, speaking about while we're at home in the body, we're away from the Lord. And we would rather be away from the body and at home with the Lord. So where are we at home and where are we away? It mixes the two up on purpose. So in a way, we're at home in the body and away from the Lord. But our real destiny is to be away from the body and at home with the Lord. That's our real home, not here, there. We're, as the Scriptures say many times, we're on pilgrimage here. We're guests. We're not here permanently. Fortunately for us and fortunately for the world, we're not here permanently. But we bring home the harvest of our lives to return home to the Lord. So it's not just Jesus that comes from heaven and also from the earth. Our destiny, we come from God too, really. We have that spiritual dimension, as some have said. It's been attributed to various people, Carl Jung, Teilhard de Chardin. We're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. So we come from God and we return from God. We go home to God, but bearing the harvest of our lives in the body, of our flesh, of that vine that we've become, the cedar, the sprout that's borne fruit by the power of the Spirit within us. So that's our destiny. We can imagine our whole lives, in this imagery. That we're planted, that we grow, that we're all together on one vine, as one body, as one tree. We have to take care of each other in that way. We're all branches of one vine, or as members of one body, as Paul puts it. And then we can provide fruit and shade and compassion to hope to others while we're here in the world. And then eventually the harvest comes. We bear the fruits that are harvested and we return home to the Lord. But it's all God's doing. It's all the fruit of the Spirit within us. So all we have to do is let it happen. Let the Spirit work through us and in us. And eventually that same Spirit, as He raised Jesus from the dead, will raise us as well to bring our full, bountiful harvest home to the Lord.